This was back in 2015 when I was still into Halloween. My friends and I would usually end up hitting the same houses in our community because that's where we were restricted to. This year, we decided to go up the hill. In our school, the hill was kind of a legendary Halloween spot. Mega-sized candy bars, expensive candy we couldn't even pronounce, and of course, mountains of candy. We met the day before Halloween and decided on the plan. A little before Halloween was over, we would go up the hill and try to empty the bowls of people who wanted to get rid of their candy before the night was over. The last stop, a house on the curve before it went up too high for us. The house owner was nicknamed Candyman because every year he would make a huge Halloween display in his yard and you'd have to go all the way through it to get to the candy. I wasn't afraid of jump scares and stuff like that, but I know a lot of the other kids in my community were, so that means maybe there would be a lot of candy still there. That night, we got our costumes on and started Operation Candy Bag. Our bags were about halfway full when we decided to go up the hill. I have to admit, some legends are true. At the time we got up to the third house, our bags were basically tearing apart trying to hold the candy. Decorations up there were better too. Some were animatronic and had motion sensors. Those were actually pretty creepy to walk past if I'm going to be honest, but I still wasn't scared. And we finally made it. The big finale of the night. The house of the Candyman. It looked like a giant maze. I think I could see the bowl from where I was standing, but I couldn't even be sure. There was a sign that pointed down saying the end, so that must be where the candy is. As we walked through the maze, it was pretty standard stuff. A couple jump scares, plastic skeletons, and a couple scary laugh tracks. I was very focused on getting to the end though, to get to that candy, so I basically ignored all the stuff around me, knowing that they were just there for cheap scares. Problem was, when I did listen in, I realized that I hadn't heard my friends walking behind me either. I looked around hoping to see them. Maybe their bags were holding them down. I was at the end of the maze. All of a sudden the sounds became a lot creepier. Lights were going out in the surrounding houses, so the few dim ones in the maze did basically nothing. There was a little tunnel left that led into a dark room. I stared down the room with my mind racing. Then out of the dark, someone wearing a leather butcher apron, a mask and goggles grabbed me and covered my mouth. I tried to scream, but it just sounded like muffled sounds. I panicked trying to get away from his grip. Eventually, he started walking back into the dark, breathing heavily, and I just started crying. I was about to give up hope until I could hear my friends talking in the darkness. They were approaching us. He let me go and just went back inside after he put the candy bowl outside. I couldn't even take any. Was this some kind of sick joke? What would he have done if my friends weren't there? I never spoke to anyone about this. That was the last year I ever went trick-or-treating. Every Halloween since then, I've always wanted to report it, but I can't help but fearing it's too late. Luckily, I hear it's abandoned now and might be torn down. I hope to God that those rumors are true, because there's no way I'll ever get close enough to know for myself. My friend Trish and I got invited to a Halloween party one year. Not so much me, because it was her sorority house, but as far as I knew, I was her +1. I wasn't much of a party person, because it always sounded like people standing around awkwardly with drinks in their hands. I was turned off from the idea early on, so I never really got into it, but Trish really sold me on this one. Apparently, there were people asking for me specifically from our extended friend group, because we never really hung out at a party before. Or at least I didn't. I said sure, and we started planning our costumes. I decided on a Catwoman costume because I was obsessed with the character when I was younger. Trish decided on a maid because her boyfriend would be there and she wanted to surprise him. We went to the costume store and we were talking about the details of the party, so I understood. This was my first time, and honestly, I was kind of nervous about it. She talked about the details, where it would be and what time it would be. As we were talking, I told her to be quiet. I started to notice that every aisle we went in, there was this guy that came in the same aisle and stood at the end pretending to look for something. I say pretending because he would be more focused on staring at us through the corner of his eye when he thought we weren't looking. I got all the decorations and costume stuff we needed, and I basically pushed Trish all the way to the counter, wanting to get out of there as soon as possible. At the counter though, the creepy stalker guy came up to cash and started trying to talk to us. Unlike me, Trish was a very friendly and open person, so she responded. He started asking if he could come as our plus one, because it sounds like it would be a great night. Everything about this guy screamed creepy. He wore a tattered baseball hat low enough to cover his eyes, an open flannel shirt, and a superhero shirt that's seen better days. Trish finally said it's invite only, and the list is full. We finally got her stuff, and he just stood there facing us with the cap still down. We got into the car, and I floored it out of there. I told Trish how creepy it was, and she said nothing to worry about. It happens all the time when such a pretty girl goes out, and she squished my face. I couldn't help but laugh. I guess eventually I calmed down and just drove us to Trish's house. We got ready for the party, and I realized that the costume I picked was a bit more revealing than I initially thought. I had grown a little. I didn't take that into account. I was a little uncomfortable, but I was going with Trish, and for some reason, everything felt more comfortable with her. We arrived at the party and spent maybe 10 minutes before one of the girls at the door came to tell us that the guy we invited was looking for us. We were both very confused, and then as we were talking, I felt someone press behind me and whisper something in the same gravelly voice. "Nice costume, cat lady." I pushed him off and asked, "What the fuck, you creep?" Some of the guys walked over and asked if there was a problem here. I said this creepy guy followed us, and they told him that he had to leave. He started saying that he was invited and grabbed my chest. I reflexively threw my drink in his face, and that's when he got upset and started shouting, "You'll regret that," over and over again. He stormed through the house as everyone gave him space. Some of the girls came to comfort me, and some of the guys asked if we were okay. Honestly, I didn't feel like I wanted to stay, but this was my first party, and I didn't want stranger danger and his creepy ways to be the reason I didn't enjoy it. We went back to partying and having fun. I had hooked up with my crush while others were playing drinking games. We were done for the night and were about to head home. As I drove off, another car behind us turned on and started driving closely behind. I made 4 turns and it was still behind us, so Trish and I had the same thought without even saying a word. I drove a little faster, hoping to lose the old pickup truck, but it was hot on my tail. It started trying to run me off the road, bumping into my car at full speed. Thankfully, I was trained for evasive action training, and I could keep enough control of my car before making a safe U-turn to stop. I pulled out the mini pistol I had in my glove compartment and fired 2 warning shots. The pickup drove off down the road to never be seen again. I called my dad because he was ex-military, hence the evasive driving training and licensed firearm. He told me not to go home. I should go straight to a police station and report it as soon as I can. As always, he reminded me to watch my mirrors. I got a partial plate and included that in my police report, but it still shakes me up to this day thinking how it could have turned out differently. My friends and I decided to do something a little extra for Halloween one year. We had started trick-or-treating early to get as much candy as we could before nightfall. Once we had enough, we stashed it at one of our friends' houses, grabbed some flashlights, and headed to our big night. We had all heard stories about this house. It was abandoned for years now, but before they boarded it up, a lot of strange things would happen. According to the stories, shortly after buying the house, a man with no history of violence brutally murdered his entire family and then ended himself too. Another girl simply walked out of the second-story window for seemingly no reason. There were even rumors of a cult that would meet there and have several human sacrifices of members. It was definitely creepy, and because of that, we decided it would be the perfect way to end Halloween. We had been scoping out the house for weeks now. We found that the doors and most of the windows were boarded up. There was also one where the wood was rotting and practically falling apart. We entered the yard and made our way to the window, being sure to look out for neighbors and passers-by. There were overgrown bushes and grass, so it wasn't that easy to look into the yard. We broke down the wood, then jumped in the window before anyone could notice us. On the inside though, it felt heavy. You know that feeling when somebody's watching you? It was like that times 1,000. We made our way through the house with our flashlights. Looking on the inside, it was shocking that this house hadn't been demolished yet. I was always a little adrenaline junkie, so the entire night was thrilling for me. With every step, the floor creaked under us. Everything seemed to be covered in a thick layer of dust and cobweb. The creepiest part of this house was without a doubt the living room. It was a wide open area with a bunch of stuff lying around. Because of how open and dark it was, there was always a feeling of someone either in the distance or right behind you. We were about to walk upstairs when there was an unmistakable sound of footsteps from upstairs. They were really slow and spaced out, but that just made them even creepier. We shut off our lights, and all that was there now was the darkness and the sound of the mysterious person walking around this broken down abandoned house. There was a heavy, sharp pain in my chest that I couldn't shake. I said we should go, but one of our friends decided he came too far and wanted to see upstairs. We all reluctantly waited for him because we would seem like jerks to leave him in here by himself. We stood there, looking at the stairs, waiting for him to come back down, and he finally did. I could see his outline in the darkness. I whispered, "Let's go." As he stood there in silence though, there was another set of footsteps moving faster down the stairs, along with them the voice of our friend that went upstairs. So who was this person, now standing close enough for us to hear their breathing? Reached out for me as I shouted, "Run!" As our flashlights turned on, the figure was too fast for us to catch a glimpse of. We booked it out the window back to my house, where we spent a few minutes trying to figure out what just happened. My friend that went upstairs said he kept hearing footsteps, so he came back downstairs. We don't know who or what was in the house, but it seems like a good idea not to find out.